Greetings. I'm John Lee of St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association. Today we're going to talk about, is it possible to buy real estate for pennies on the dollar at Missouri tax sales? Some think it's unrealistic. Others think it must be a scam. And still others think Missouri tax sales are only for sophisticated investors and you need a JSD law degree. Well, today's guest has something very important to say, and you'll be blown away by his information. Let's welcome Mr. Scott Walterbach. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And for those that may not know, Scott Walterbach is based north of Kansas City in Gladstone, Missouri. He's the founder of the Missouri Tax Sale Seminar, LLC, as well as a practicing attorney and tax sale expert. Scott's family includes his wonderful wife, Katie, and four beautiful children. He's the best-selling author of Missouri Real Property Tax Sales, Exploring Missouri's Tax Sale Framework and the Jones-Munger Act, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Scott's been a guest on several podcasts such as Tax Sale Insiders and Get Real KC, and has presented for the Missouri County Collectors Association the last couple of years as well. And there's much more. Scott, is there anything else we should highlight here?
Well, I have been doing tax sale work and quiet title litigation specifically since before I actually passed the bar. I was helping some partners in my previous law firm do that work while I was still in law school. And that was in 2005, 2006, and 2007. So then I passed the bar in 2007 after I graduated from school. So I've been at it a while, and I got tired of waiting for somebody else to accumulate this research and put it into one handy place as a reference for lawyers and investors alike. So I decided during COVID, I had a little bit more time on my hands, decided I would go ahead and do it myself. And so that was the generation of the book version of what started out as an industry white paper. And so that's sort of evolved over the years, and it's been fun. I enjoy it. I've had a lot of cases over the years, and so I feel like I have something to share.
And I will say the book is one of the best books out there on the information too, Scott. You've really put a lot into this. I mean, you can see my markings in here. I do use this quite a bit just to stay up on things.
I
And
have
I
to
know,
thank my publisher and my editor because they really helped me make it accessible to somebody who's not an expert in the subject. I got a lot of questions from my editor to say, what does this mean? What are you talking about here? We need to get rid of this part of it or expand upon that part of it. And so it was a process, but it was also kind of fun to take that kind of constructive feedback and go through that writing process with somebody. I believe she was out on the East Coast, so she knew nothing about Missouri tax sales. And so that was a great exercise to try to see if what I'm trying to communicate makes sense to somebody who's not an expert in the subject.
well, you did a really good job putting it together, and it is very understandable. And I think anyone that's interested in tax sales in Missouri at all should get a copy. Like I said, it's got. I know what goes into writing a book too, because I've done a couple of them myself, and it's not just that you just put your ideas down and put it up for sale. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot to go back and forth, like you said, and you did definitely have some of the some good people helping you on that. So.
Yeah, I think it's all those types of things. Writing a book is always a team effort.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Well, let's get right into it, I guess. Can we really buy real estate at Missouri tax sales for pennies on the dollar, Scott?
It's a really good question. And the answer, of course, I'm an attorney, so I'm going to give you the answer that's yes and no. It
Okay.
depends, right?
Hmm.
So in Missouri, what happens at the tax sale? We have 114 counties in Missouri, right? And two of them, Jackson County and St. Louis City, both do judicial foreclosures. We're going to set those aside for a second. We're not really going to talk about those. That's a whole different animal. The other 112 counties in Missouri do a non-judicial foreclosure, which is an auction held by the county collector in each county. What they're selling, though, at that auction is not actually the property itself. What they're selling at that auction is what they call a tax lien certificate. And so you're buying into, for whatever the tax amount due is, taxes and interest and penalties, whatever's on the tax bill, could be city special assessments and other things that might be included. So you're buying into the state's lien position. And the state's lien position is pretty high. It will wipe out just about everything junior to it with a few exceptions, and we can get into that if you want to, but suffice it to say here is you're buying that tax lien certificate, and then you're waiting the statutory redemption period for first and second sales, that meaning the first time that the property has come up and offered by the collector, you're waiting 1 year for the redemption period. Now, during that year, you're going to undertake some noticing efforts and title search and things like that. And we can talk about that in a second. But a lot of people think they're going to an auction like they're going to a deed of trust foreclosure, and they're going to buy a property, and they're going to pay, 1,000 or 5,000 or $10,000 for $100,000 property. It's not actually quite how the tax sale system works. A lot of people think they're buying the property, but they're not. They're buying an inchoate interest, which is represented by the tax sale certificate. It's a lien that's recorded in county land records, and so that's what you're buying. And then you want to make sure you do your due diligence so that either one of two things hopefully is going to happen. One, the property is going to redeem and you're going to make interest on your investment for the taxes and penalties and interest due. Or two, you're going to end up with a collector's deed to the property, and then you're going to want to take it through a quiet title action to confirm, to get a judicial confirmation of that non-judicial foreclosure process so that we can get to a point where the title is then insurable. And so then that way you can rent it, you can fix it up, you can sell it, you can encumber it with, use it as collateral for a business loan or a personal loan or something like that. You can really do something with it at that point. So it's a bit of a process. This is not a get rich quick scheme. You do have to know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can read up on it. You can talk to people like John. You can read the materials that are available, my book or John's book, and other things that are available out there for free. You can listen to very intelligent people like Dale Sweet talk about these types of issues. And then what you need to do is, just like we all need to do in life, realize what we don't know and have somebody that swims in those waters and that lives in those areas to help you out with the things that you don't know. Like, for example, maybe how and when to send a notice of the right to redeem, or how to apply for a collector's deed, or how and whether to take a case through a quiet title to clear up the title, and what you need to do within that quiet title to make sure that you're ending up with something that can be insurable and get through a closing and get back on the um, tax producing rolls, back to an asset of the community, be back to something that is producing value to the neighbors and to you as the investor.
Wow, it sounds like it's complicated, but I know if you're with the right people like yourself that walk you through the process, it does make it easier. Now, what are some of the things you mentioned a little bit, some of the municipalities and things like that? What are some of the things that people may not think of? Because you hear a lot of this stuff out there as far as, oh yeah, you can buy this and then it wipes out all the liens and all that kind of stuff. But my experience is there may be grass cutting fees or something like that. What is some of the due diligence we may want to be aware of, Scott, when we're looking at that?
So, first of all, we're going to start usually with a title search. Normally, we would just do an owner encumbrance report. It costs you a few $100s. That tells you who has recorded publicly interest in the property, such as liens, mechanics liens, sewer liens, grass cutting liens, special tax bills, neighborhood improvement district assessments, community improvement district assessments. There's all kinds of that. I list a whole bunch of them in the book, although I don't promise that it's an exclusive list, because it seems like just when I think I've heard it all, something new comes up. You get the IRS or the Missouri Department of Revenue, or the United States Department of Justice. I saw it had a lien on one for a criminal restitution judgment. There's always these strange things that come up, but that's why you get a title search, so that you can figure out what's going on with this property, who's owned it, who owns it now, and then what kind of liens are out there. From there, then you're going to work with your attorney to figure out which of those things could be extinguished by the tax sale, and which of those things are definitely not extinguished by the tax sale, and then which of those things may or may not be, maybe we really don't know yet because of where the case law stands. Most things are wiped out by the tax sale. Most junior liens are extinguished unless there's a specific statutory exception for those things. And off the top of my head, uh, sewer liens, some sewer liens, some tax liens, city tax liens, and community improvement district liens. Those would be the ones you want to watch out for. There's other things out there that could pose a problem, uh, like grass cutting fees and things like that. But for the most part, counties and cities want to, just like you, want to get these properties back in a productive state, back to an asset of the neighborhood with somebody that lives there, somebody that cares about it, somebody that's going to pay the taxes. So they will work with you on some of those things. And then it also depends on when they arose. Was it a long time ago? Was it very recently? Did they attach a lien after, for example, you recorded your collector's deed? There's all sorts of things that can come up with the timing of all of those things.
Wow, it sounds like there's so much to know. And I know there's some redemption periods and things like that that you need to, guidelines you need to follow to get the quiet titles. And a quiet title, maybe you could talk just a little bit more about that for someone that might not know on what that process is and what that would actually do for us if we
Sure.
would buy that.
The redemption period for first and second sales is 1 year. For third sales, it's 90 days. And then for post third sales, there really is no redemption period, although I would still encourage most of those folks to operate as if it has a 90-day redemption period and go ahead and send notices anyways. We can talk about that. It can go on longer than 1 year if you don't send your notices, because your notices you have to send a 90-day notice to anybody who appears of public record that having an ownership or other interest in the property. So normally what happens is we're going to the tax sale in the fall, fourth Monday in August, right?
Mhm.
Then we're not really doing anything on the bids that we win, except for paying our bid, right, at the tax sale. Then we're paying the subsequently due taxes that come due in December, because every year nothing stops, right? Every year it's going to come due.
Mhm.
Then we don't really do anything until March. March 1st is the first point at which costs for getting that title search report that I just talked about, spending that couple $100, and then also probably maybe $100 or $200 to mail all these notices. That's the first point at which that becomes a reimbursable expense through the tax sale process. So we are then mailing our notices. Usually we hope to get those out. We hope to get our title searches in, mid-March, late March. We look them over in April. We want all those notices out on the street by mid-May. I have a couple of them to do that I'm going to work on today, actually, and make sure we get notice to all the right people at every possible address we can think of in order to comply with both the statute and constitutional due process. And we're going to try to get all those out on the street by mid-May so that our 90 days, think about it, June, July, August. August is the 1 year anniversary of the sale, but we want to time it so that it doesn't last longer than August, late August, when the 1 year anniversary of the tax sale comes around. So we want to get all those out on the street, and then we see what comes back. We may need to do follow-up methods based on the statute and prevailing notions of constitutional due process. And once we've completed all that, then we also help investors apply for the deed, because you got to keep copies of all that stuff and you got to prove to the collector what you did. And you have to satisfy them that you've made a compliant and good faith effort to notice everybody that is appearing of public record on the title. So there's this 1 year component and there's this 90-day component. They can run concurrently. You only have 18 months from the date of the tax sale to complete all that work and get your application to the collector. So we try to get it done right at 12 months because usually the property is not improving in value and condition during this period of time. John, I'm sure you've seen houses like this where the windows are boarded or the grass isn't getting mowed and things like that. So we're trying to we're trying to get it done as soon as possible so that we can gain that possession so that we can start taking care of the property and get it back going again. So that's why we're not waiting till the last minute if we don't have to, because it's things aren't getting better at that point. Sometimes these things also have latent defects. Maybe it needs a new roof, but we can't really see that from the back or from the street. And we're not allowed to go on the property during this time. I've seen a house that had like, a missing back window, a missing back door, maybe missing the back half of the house that we couldn't see from the street. And so some of these issues get to be more and more costly as more time goes by. So we're trying to move at the pace at which the laws allow.
Mm. I tell you, that's so important what you just said right there, because the houses do not get better either. The properties do not. And in the meantime, you do have to follow all the guidelines. So you do have to be with an expert. And I know different areas are different when you start talking about municipalities, and sometimes there's HOAs and POAs involved and things like that. So would it be fair to say you really need a local expert in the county or in the area that you're working on to work with?
For the legal part of it, you need somebody with a license in the jurisdiction, so somewhere in the state of Missouri. Now, for the part that you're talking about, I think your question may have been more geared towards property management. Yeah, it helps to have somebody there that can keep eyes on it, that can board up windows, change locks, things like that. There needs to be some sort of local agent or connection there so that you can take care of the physical property itself. And a lot of times there needs to be maintenance done, there needs to be securing that's done. Sometimes there's people living in these houses. Sometimes there's renters or heirs, people that don't know the tax situation of the property. And so it's helpful to start a conversation with them and to work with them on how to upkeep and maintain the property, but also how to maybe rent it back to them or sell it to them eventually if they are interested in it.
Yeah, that's a great point right there, because I have bought some houses where people were living in them, and you definitely have to treat them a little differently than the empty properties. And
That's where it gets fun though. It gives you an opportunity to work with people, and there's a lot of room there to, you're not just there to kick somebody out of a house. What you want to do, I think what we all want to do is make the house a productive asset of the neighborhood again. We want somebody to be there who cares for it, somebody who's going to take care of it, make it look nice. We want somebody who's going to pay the taxes and, maybe raise a family or work from home or use the property in a productive manner that helps the neighborhood and society at large.
yeah, very good points right there. And I know it seems like there's so much to know, but I know you've done such a great job of putting it together, which you've done every year with the Missouri Tax Sale Seminar. This year's number 5, if I'm correct here. And would you like to tell us a little bit about that? I know you bring people together from all over the place, some really high level people that really know what they're doing. And I'll tell you, it's one of the most educational seminars I've been to on tax sale auctions, and I appreciate it every year. One reason we're talking right now. Can you tell us a little bit about where it's at and what's going to happen this year?
I would love to. I started this project because I was thinking about starting some sort of trade group where maybe even it was just attorneys that would get together and talk about this area of the law. Chapter 140 under Missouri statutes is fairly dense. It's fairly complex, and it's not something that a normal practicing attorney would come across probably in their normal course of work. So I got to realize over the years that there's maybe a handful, half a dozen, maybe more than that, but there's a smaller subset of the bar that really knows anything about this and that practices in it with any regularity. That was my idea. Then I've been a longtime member of the National Tax Lien Association, which is the national group that talks about these same types of issues. And I talked to people from Maryland and Tennessee and Mississippi and Arizona, all kinds of places, and pick their brains about what do they do locally. And then I met Billy Richards from Indiana, and he was putting on an annual seminar. I think he's been doing it for 25 or 30 years. and he is the expert in Indiana tax sales. And Indiana tax sales, I don't think are all that dissimilar from Missouri. I'm sure there's all sorts of ways that they're the same and different all at the same time. And he puts on this annual seminar, and I got to talking to him about it, and I thought, that's what I want to do. Selfishly, it was a way to gather these people, but not have me make a year-round type of commitment. It's one time a year. We gather, we talk about these things, and then I can take a break for a while and go back to practicing law and doing the family things and all the other things that I want to do instead of being the head of some year-round thing. Probably like you do, John, with like the real estate group that you're, I mean, that's a big time commitment. So I like this idea of an annual seminar. And then I thought, I'm going to do sort of what Billy was doing and offer continuing legal education. I can get some attorneys there, right? And then I thought, I want the collectors to be there. And so I'll make it free for them. And I want the collectors to be in the room and I want them to talk. And then I thought, well, if we're doing attorneys and collectors, why not investors? Why not code enforcement people? Why not government people? We've had mayors come talk, mayors of small cities and things like that. We've had them come talk. I think the more people that get in a room and talk about not just the law, but also policy, also practicalities, what's happening like in these neighborhoods, the more we can talk about those things, I think that opens doors to better policy, more mutual understanding. And so that's what I've tried to do with the tax sale seminar. It started around COVID, around the same time I was writing this book. I have plenty of contacts in the industry, other attorneys and collectors and things like that. And so my hope for the seminar was that it wouldn't be the Scott Walterbach show where I get on and talk for, the entire day. And that's really what's happened. It's been really neat that I have spoken at the seminar before, but I've tried to do so very sparingly. I really want to hear from other people. And so we've had attorneys, collectors, code enforcement people, mayors. I'm hoping someday to get maybe some legislators or some judges that are interested in these topics. The possibilities are out there. This year is our fifth annual. We do have an in-person seminar and a free lunch. Can't beat that, right? But we also offer it on Zoom if you can attend. This year it's going to be near Cape Girardeau. That's not the most convenient location for a lot of Missourians because it's in one corner of the state. So it's available by Zoom. It's been available by Zoom since we started because it started during COVID. That's when everything was on Zoom.
Mhm.
So this year we have an attorney that's going to talk about a specific appeal related to sewer district liens. He's going to lead off. That's Michael Hickey. Jerry Higgins is an attorney that is now doing some of this work in Missouri, but has done this work in Indiana and lots of other places. So he's going to talk about how Missouri compares to other states. I find that fascinating because it opens our eyes as to what's possible. We don't necessarily have to do it the way we're doing it today. There are ideas out there that are working in other jurisdictions, and maybe we could borrow what we like and not what we, leave what we don't like. Kathy Davis is going to talk, who I'm sure a lot of your listeners and viewers probably know her. She's going to talk about possession type issues, and she's always great to hear from. And Dale Sweet, another person that you probably are familiar with. He's always one of my favorites to hear from. He knows so much, but also he's entertaining to listen to. So that's it's a real win for me to get him every year. And he's spoken, he's taken at least 1 hour every year, and he's great. And John Lee yourself is going to speak this year on some of the issues that you know about related to real property transactions, property maintenance, whatever those things are. And then I'm really excited this year because Matt Abey is joining us. Matt Abey is an attorney in South Carolina. He has been probably, if not the leading national expert, certainly one of them on these federal issues related to tax foreclosures throughout the country. He is very well informed and is a regular speaker at not just the National Tax Lien Association, but also Tax Sale Insiders and some of those conferences about Tyler versus Hennepin County. Pung versus Isabella County, which is kind of happening right now. And these are United States Supreme Court cases that touch on tax sale issues. And he's sort of the nation's leading expert on that. I tried to get him last year and it didn't really work out, but then he graciously agreed to join us this year. That's why you'll see we have South Carolina CLE credit approved for the seminar in addition to Missouri and Kansas. So I'm really excited about this year. I think it's come together nicely, and I don't have to talk for an hour. You don't have to listen to me. So I think it's really great for collectors and investors and everybody to get in a room, talk about tax sales. We all have a little bit different perspective, but we're talking about the same subject matter, and it helps to understand everybody else's perspective. And that's sort of the neatest part for me is the people that I get to meet and the conversations that I see happening during the breaks and some of the lunch and things like that. I get to see people talking and sharing ideas, and I think that's just going to make the process in our state better over time. And I'm not doing it to make money. I'm doing it really because I like that dynamism. I like that networking part of it and sharing ideas. And so it's very affordable, and I intend to keep it that way as long as I can, especially when people like John or some of the collectors that have helped me this year find a free place to have it. I have sponsors for the lunch, and so we found ways to get creative and make this something that is a fairly low budget affair, as you might imagine, but we try to keep costs down and just invite everybody in the room and talk about tax sales.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by how you've put this together and actually kept the cost down, just like you said, Scott. I mean, I've been to a lot of high level events, a lot lower level events than this for a lot more money. And you even include the lunch. I've paid more for lunches before than what the whole day cost here. And to get in the room with the high level people that you put together, and that's something I personally really appreciate because I haven't seen anybody put together this type of detail before. With this caliber of people, and this is now this is coming up on June. What is it? June 26th this year. And
Yes, we always try to do a Friday in June because the CLE year runs on a fiscal year. So I'm trying to get all those attorneys that are scrambling for CLE hours to come to our seminar and get their hours in at the end of June. So yes, this year it's 8:30 to 4 p.m. Friday, June 26th. It's at the University of Missouri Extension Office in Jackson, Missouri. The address is on the website. Jackson, Missouri is right near Cape Girardeau. A lot of more people are familiar with where Cape Girardeau is. All the details and the way to register and everything is at my website that I personally maintain. It's www.mtss.llc, MTSS for Missouri Tax Sale Seminar. So www.mtss.llc. All the information is there. It's a simple Google form to register, and I'd encourage you to check it out. I'm trying to make it as valuable as I can, and but really I'm doing it for, my own networking and enjoyment, and hopefully better policy as issues come up in our state. Hopefully somebody would consult some of the speakers or some of the people that have been involved or the collectors that have been involved in this seminar and recognize those people as people who know about this area and would be consulted, and so that we can have a way to fix the problems that we need to fix and make better tax sale policy for everybody involved, including homeowners, including tax delinquent parties, including investors and collectors and everybody else.
well, I really appreciate that, Scott. And I know the timing couldn't be any better. I know I didn't realize the CLEs, for the attorneys was such great timing, but it's also such great timing for the tax sale too in Missouri because all the tax sales are on the same day in Missouri in every county. That's the fourth Monday in August every year, and this timing is perfect on your seminar here because it gives you time to to learn the information and then go back and study the area because that's about just right after that is the time when all the tax sale lists come out. That's something that I do every year. It's about July. So that, just you have this, then you have maybe a a week off for our vacation over the 4th, which is also my birthday. So I get to celebrate that every year. Then the tax sale list comes out, and then we get to kind of research that a little bit and see what's available coming up in August. It's actually one of my favorite times of year between, I know you'd mentioned May on your disclosures, things like that. May, June, and July is my favorite times of year coming up to the tax sale anyway. So this is just, the timing couldn't be any more excellent, in my opinion.
And
And
I knew I had to put it during a time of the year where collectors were perhaps a little more available to be there. They get really busy in the fall with the tax sale. They get really busy at the end of the year when it's, deadline time. And then they're dealing with a lot of those issues in January and February and in the spring. They can be very busy too. Not that they're not busy over the summer, but I've tried to hit one of the less busy times for all the collectors and their staff.
well, I think it's perfect the way you've done it and the way you put it together and the people you got together here, Scott. And for anybody that's out there that's interested even a little bit, and there's a virtual option, I would go to your website. That's mtss.llc. And of course, we'll put a link down in there and for the replay here. And is there anything else you'd like to say, Scott, before we wrap it up
Well,
here?
this was pre-recorded. I'm sorry I can't be with you today as you're watching this, but I will be in a continuing legal education seminar all day on the day that you're watching this. So otherwise, I would join you live and take questions, and we'd have even more fun. But hopefully, this will suffice for that, and hopefully, I'll get to see you at the seminar in June.
We're really looking forward to that, Scott. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Right.